Iran's foreign minister is suggesting for the first time the country's ballistic missile program could be on the table as part of future negotiations with the U.S. But he says the U.S. would have to ease sanctions on Iran. This amid lingering tensions over President Trump's decision last year to pull out of the 2015 nuclear deal. Retired Army Lieutenant Colonel Daniel Davis is with me now, senior fellow at Defense Priorities. Is this a change for Iran, or are they bending?
Well, you know, actually, it's showing that Iran's been pretty consistent, actually, from the beginning. When President Trump got rid of this, the JCPOA, it was done with the intention to negotiate a better deal that would put more constraints on their nuclear program and would actually include the missile program into it. But this maximum pressure campaign that many of his aides have been very enthusiastic about has had the exact opposite effect. It's actually now caused them to go beyond the limits of what they were restricted by. And, you know, of course, the nuclear or the weapons have not been part of it, the missiles. Now then you see both on Sunday and Monday, both the Iranian president and the foreign minister have now said that they are willing to talk. If there was ever going to be a shot for Trump to actually move in and make this negotiation, this is going to be the time. But I will tell you that if we think we're going to negotiate a better deal, that means we're also going to have to be willing to give something. And the big question is Washington willing to give something in order to get something?
Colonel Davis, what would you suggest we give?
Well, one of the first things we can do is to say, hey, look, we can give provisional release of some of our allies who want to buy some Iranian oil, which they're significantly asking about that. That could be a relatively minor thing, but we do have to be able to have a diplomatic off-ramp and lower some of the pressure, which that could do, so that we can actually get into negotiations.
You know, it's so interesting because we might have had a different level of capitulation if we weren't doing so well in our own oil production. I was reading recently that on the world stage, the United States is doing pretty well, and that complicates the situation for Iran.
Well, it may complicate it for them, but it certainly makes it better for us because we actually don't have to have this deal. Our military will keep us safe no matter what because deterrence will keep Iran from doing anything unprovoked. And actually, you make a good point because the entire Middle East is a lot less important today than it was because of it lowers our domestic production, lowers our reliance on that area.
So I don't want to turn you completely into a diplomat here because your lane is military, but they do go hand in hand. What are we concerned that Iran would do militarily at this point? I mean, you call an unprovoked, unexpected. What could they do?
Right. Well, and that's the whole thing. And you're right. They're inextricably connected, both diplomatic and military. What we don't want to do and what maximum pressure is doing is pushing them into a point to where they may do the very thing that we don't want them to do by taking risky action, which could cause a war. So we have to be willing to back off of that a little bit for tactical purposes.
One last question, because the president talks about how things are different with Iran. How different are they? What has changed?
Well, you know, the only thing that they actually are willing to put the ballistic missile program on the table for the first time. That's a very different thing that they haven't been willing to talk about. But as you pointed out in your opening there, they want something for that. But that's the key point, that if we're going to get something that we haven't had, we have to be willing to give something that we haven't given. And that's to be seen whether we do.
Colonel Davis, thank you very much.
Always my pleasure. Thanks, Harris.